3 years of marriage, and Larry has never touched me. So, I put on some lace lingerie, faked a few hickeys, and sent him a picture of myself asleep, shot as if someone else had taken it. Dude, she's incredible. How about you divorce her and let me have her? I figured that when Larry got the anonymous text, he'd be disgusted and furious. He'd toss me aside like trash, me, the stand-in for his beloved sister. I thought, this time, I could finally get my divorce. My sister was vacationing in Europe, celebrating her 3rd wedding anniversary. She asked what I wanted as a gift. I asked for a burner SIM card from overseas. Holding the card in my hand, standing in the empty hotel room, I let out a tired sigh. Then I slipped into the sheer lace nightgown I'd bought specifically for this plan. I stood in front of the mirror, carefully creating a constellation of hickeys on my collarbone and neck. The marks were scattered, looking as if a man had ravaged me in a fit of passion. One of the thin straps of the nightgown was torn by this imaginary man. Finally, I looked in the mirror and smeared my perfectly applied lipstick. Then I sat on the bed and messed up the other side to make it look like someone had just left. I closed my eyes. The camera was set on a self-timer, positioned to look like someone else took the shot. 3, 2, 1. In the photo, the woman looks like she just had a passionate encounter, sleeping deeply and without a care in the world. I stared at it for a long time. I couldn't help but think of Larry's reputation in the business world. A wolf in sheep's clothing. A ruthless capitalist who'd eat you alive. But the face I knew best was the one that was always cold and emotionless. He was handsome, but all his affection was reserved for my sister. I prepared for the worst. Even if Larry felt nothing for me, no man could stomach his wife cheating on him. He'd probably retaliate. But in the end, he would be disgusted and angry enough to throw me away and grant me a divorce. As long as I can get a divorce. That's all I want. I closed my eyes and hit send. On the screen, the casual, taunting message. Dude, she's incredible. How about you divorce her and let me have her? Paired with that photo. Sent. Less than 2 seconds later, a reply came through. Larry, who is this? I slowly started to change my clothes. I dragged out my reply, taking a perverse sort of pleasure in it. He must be losing his mind, wanting to tear this anonymous person limb from limb. The golden boy, the man who had been perfect his whole life, was finally having his emotions toyed with by someone else, and by me, of all people, someone he always had under his thumb. After 3 years of silent suffering, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. I changed into my regular clothes. In that time, Larry sent 2 more messages. Stop with the clumsy AI face swap. State your purpose. You'd better tell me everything yourself. I'll make sure it's a clean kill. I chuckled. Larry, if you want to know if it's AI, why don't you just ask your wife? The hickeys on my baby's neck won't fade that quickly. I dared to say this because I knew Larry was overseas closing a major deal. He wouldn't be back for at least 2 weeks. The next second, my own phone started ringing. I jumped. The ringtone blared. It was Larry. I pursed my lips, staring at the screen until the call disconnected. But it lit up again almost immediately. Larry was calling again, relentlessly. I knew then that I had truly pissed him off. My heart pounded in my chest. I was walking a tightrope, playing a very dangerous game. I texted, Larry, stop calling. We went 5 rounds. Your wife is exhausted and fast asleep. The calls finally stopped. My phone fell silent. Using the burner SIM, I sent another. I'm not trying to break you 2 up, Larry. Your wife and I are truly in love. Please, be the bigger person and divorce her so she can be with me. You don't want everyone finding out your wife is cheating on you. Think of your reputation. Larry never replied. My nerves were shot as I threw the torn lace nightgown in the trash, checked out of the hotel, and went back to our villa. The maids were cleaning. Everything was completely normal, so quiet it was as if nothing had happened. I showered and went to sleep. In the early morning, as the sky was just beginning to lighten, I vaguely heard the roar of an engine and the screech of tires outside. By the time I realized what was happening and my eyes flew open, there was a knock on my bedroom door. "Catherine, open the door." The voice was deep and cold, strained to sound steady, but a hint of frantic urgency bled through. I was wide awake now, a bucket of ice water dumped over my head. My whole body went cold. It was Larry. My mind went blank. How could he be back? I was just a worthless substitute to him. The knock came again, 3 times, the picture of restraint. His speech was a little fast. "Catherine, I need to see you." I sat up. "Don't panic. Don't give anything away." I took a deep breath, trying to sound sleepy but composed. "Larry, I need to use the bathroom and take a shower. Just a minute." I rushed into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and stared at the hickeys on my neck. I'd made them myself with the mouth of a bottle. To make them look real, I'd been rough. They wouldn't fade, and I doubted foundation could even cover them. But I had to try to cover them. A cheater's first instinct is always to lie, to hide. Larry was no fool. I had to play the part perfectly. I wet my hair to look like I'd just showered, then changed into a black turtleneck dress that covered everything, even my arms. I put a band-aid over the one hickey peeking out from my collar. I looked in the mirror, practicing a guilty but defiant expression. This should be disgusting enough for him. Larry would surely be repulsed and demand a divorce, tell me to get out. I opened the door. Larry was sitting on the sofa, his eyes closed and his brow furrowed. His face was a little pale, and a faint stubble shadowed his jaw. He wasn't wearing his watch, and the cufflinks that matched his suit were gone. One hand gripped his phone tightly. The other rested on the arm of the sofa, for deep cuts across the knuckles. It looked like he'd punched something. More than once. But he didn't seem to care. He hadn't even bothered with a band-aid. "Larry, what are you doing back?" Larry opened his eyes and looked at me, his pupils dark and heavy. He pushed himself off the sofa. The man who had seemed so rushed just moments before now walked toward me with excruciating slowness. I instinctively took a step back, but he grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. He lowered his gaze to my neck, his pupils constricting. I forced a smile. "Did something happen?" He didn't answer. His cold fingers came up, 2 of them hovering over the band-aid on my neck. It felt like he was about to rip it off, and with it, all my lies, before furiously, humiliatingly, tearing up our sham of a marriage contract. I started to tremble, closing my eyes and waiting to be exposed. But his index and middle fingers just rested gently on the band-aid. "How did this happen?" Larry asked calmly. I deliberately looked away. I just cut it on a book page yesterday." "A book page?" Larry blinked slowly. "What were you doing last night?" His fingertips slid under my collar. One sharp pull and he would see the hickeys hidden beneath the fabric. I swallowed hard. "I went out to get my hair done." Larry's breathing grew heavy. He stared at me, his face unreadable. For a second, I had the strange feeling he was going to devour me whole. His fingers tightened on my collar, and I stumbled forward, nearly falling into his chest. I quickly threw my arms up to block him. His hand wrapped around my lower back, tightening like an iron band, as if he was channeling all his suppressed rage into that one grip. I was no match for his strength. My arms, pushing against him, began to weaken. Larry moved closer, inch by inch. Larry, don't," I stammered. I didn't know what he was going to do, but my instincts screamed that it was dangerous. My mind was a blank slate, my voice trembling as I begged randomly. After a few seconds, he slowly pulled his fingers back, clenching them into a fist. His face turned ashen, his lips pressed into a thin, tight line. I only then realized what I had just said. "I'm scared. Don't touch me. Please. I'm assigning you 2 bodyguards." They'll follow you whenever you go out to ensure your safety, Larry announced coolly. Then, without another word, he turned and left. It wasn't until I heard the familiar roar of his car's engine outside that it hit me. He wasn't going to press it? How was that possible? He had me watched so closely I barely had a chance to get to my burner phone. For some reason, Larry, who was supposed to be overseas, cut his 5-day business trip short and rushed back. Once he was home, the surveillance loosened up a bit, and I finally got another chance to use the phone. I texted from the burner SIM. Dude, don't be a sore loser. So she cheated. Just get a divorce. Why'd you have to lock your wife up? Larry's reply was fast, she didn't cheat. I trust her. Catherine isn't the type of person to do something like this. I stared at the message, stunned. What did that mean? It was true that I couldn't bring myself to actually cheat, which is why I'd come up with this scheme. But how could Larry know me so well? He was always so cold, so distant. I threw everything I had into it, adding fuel to the fire. Larry, you don't know your wife as well as I do. She has 3 moles. One on her ribs, one by her belly button, and another. Every time I trace a line between them with my finger, she shivers uncontrollably. But you're her husband. After 3 years of marriage, I'm sure you already knew that, right? The last line was dripping with sarcasm. In 3 years, Larry had never once touched me. Bang! The moment I sent the text, a loud crash came from upstairs. It was from Larry's study. I flinched, quickly hiding the burner phone. The crashing sound came a few more times. Then, I heard Larry coming downstairs. He sounded exhausted as he spoke to the housekeeper. Have someone clean that up. The computer needs to be replaced. His footsteps grew closer. I trembled, feeling like I was the next thing he was going to tear apart. I dove under the covers, pretending to be asleep. The lock on my door had mysteriously broken after he got back. Larry gently turned the handle. Seeing the room was dark, he didn't say anything. In the dead silence, his heavy, ragged breathing and his frantic, uneven heartbeat were so loud I wondered if he could hear my own heart pounding in my chest. He got closer and closer. I squeezed my eyes shut. Larry didn't shake me awake. He didn't grab me by the throat and demand an explanation. He just stood by my bed. Even with my eyes closed, I could feel his sharp, searing gaze fixed on my stomach, as if he was debating whether or not to check. Don't tremble. Keep your breathing steady. Keep acting. I didn't move a muscle. Suddenly, the mattress dipped beside me. Larry slowly lay down next to me. That cold, burning gaze was still locked on me. I gritted my teeth. In for a penny, in for a pound. I had to push him further. As if lost in a sweet dream, I sleepily turned over and snuggled into his chest. Larry froze for a second. That intense, piercing gaze suddenly softened. Honey. I murmured in my sleep. Larry went rigid. I pressed on, wrapping my arms around him and using the sweetest, most cloying voice I could muster. Honey, hold me. I thought he would get angry, that he might even slap me awake. Because I had never called him honey. He knew I was talking to someone else. But he glared at me, his hands gripping my arms so tightly he trembled with rage. But the next second, he heard my whimper and forced himself to loosen his grip. Larry cupped the back of my head, pulling me in tighter. He kissed my hair. Then he began to stroke my back, up and down, a clumsy but gentle gesture meant to soothe me to sleep. He whispered, "Yeah, honey's got you." I froze. His bizarrely calm reaction was utterly insane. Larry was an exceptionally intelligent man. He should have known I was cheating the moment he got that first text. To avoid a scandal, he should have drafted divorce papers and forced me out with nothing. But instead, he denied it, again and again, fanatically, stubbornly insisting I hadn't slept with someone else. And now he was practically hypnotizing himself, stealing the sweet nothings meant for another man. What was he doing? Larry must have thought my sleepy murmurs had stopped because I'd fallen into a deeper sleep. He silently lifted the covers. His finger touched my ribs, then gently traced the path of the moles I'd described. It was a light, cool touch. It happened so fast. Before I could even react, my body jerked and I started shaking uncontrollably. I'd made that text up. I had no idea that someone tracing those moles would actually send a jolt like an electric current through me. I was trembling so badly I could barely keep up the act. I immediately tried to turn away and hide. Larry stopped, then wrapped his arms completely around me, forcing me to face him. It was a tight, solid embrace, like a lock clicking into place, so tight I could feel the frantic, powerful beat of his heart against my chest. He whispered softly, "You are mine, and I am yours." He'd really lost it. He'd abandoned all logic and reason, all his calculated decisions, and become a feral beast. Savage, direct, possessive without compromise. It was as if I had been dragged into his den, and now I could only belong to him. Larry had objectified me, and himself. We weren't humans with fragile skin and sensitive souls, but two lifeless iron locks. With a click, we were bound together. And he could stubbornly believe that I was his, and he was mine. He was completely insane. I opened my eyes in the darkness, trapped between his burning chest and arms, staring at Larry's sleeping face with a storm of complicated feelings. Eventually, my eyelids grew heavy, and I fell asleep. In my dream, I was my 3 years younger self, crying and begging Larry to let me go. He just watched me coldly. Until I screamed, "I don't owe you anything. You have no reason to lock me up." Only then did he take a step back. He was silent for a full minute before looking up. "You do owe me. Your sister ran away and broke our engagement. So you'll spend the rest of your life paying me back. I will never let you go." I collapsed to the floor, touching the face that looked so much like my sister's. I finally understood. He would never let me go because he saw me as her substitute. 3 miserable, humiliating years had passed like that. When I woke up, Larry was gone. The space beside me was neat and tidy, as if no one had ever been there. I got a reply from Larry. "Do you have any other pictures or videos of her?" I shot back, "Dude, I may have my fun, but I'm not a creep. I don't take compromising photos of women. Is that the kind of slick bullshit you used to trick her? She's so young, you animal." I was baffled. "We're in love." And what did he mean, young? I was 23 and about to finish my master's. "Larry, leave her. Name your price." I was furious. "I told you, bro, we're in love. How about you leave her? I'll name your price." "Larry, you don't deserve her." I didn't like the sound of that. The male version of me was a great catch, thank you very much. I decided to escalate. Cringing, I saved a random photo of a guy's abs from the internet, and another of other parts. I sent them both to Larry. "I'm packing some serious heat, don't worry. Your wife is very well taken care of." This time, I didn't hear anything being smashed. A second later, Larry, sitting in the living room, let out a single, sharp, contemptuous laugh. "Ha! Wasn't it big enough? I mean, I haven't seen that many in person, but the one in the picture looked pretty impressive." What the hell was so funny? A new message from Larry came through quickly. I glanced at it, and the hair on my arms stood on end. "On the 27th of last month, you, or someone you sent, went to Barcelona and bought a phone card, correct? Larry, did you really think I couldn't find you just because you used a burner? Larry, I will check every single person. I will peel back this mystery like skinning you alive. You'd better hope you went to Barcelona yourself. Because if you had someone else buy it and mail it to you, there will be an address. Larry, you should sleep with one eye open. Bro." That last word was pure, vicious mockery. I wouldn't be outdone. Of course I will. All the better to look at your wife. Smash. Outside the door, another cup hit the floor. Larry, she's just playing with you. I gritted my teeth. Is that so? Then maybe you should pay attention to the changes in your wife lately. I shut off the phone. And instantly calmed down. Changes. What kind of changes does a person go through when they start an affair? I started working out. Every morning, I was in the home gym for a full 40 minutes of weights and 15 minutes of cardio. Less than 2 days later, the housekeeper awkwardly told me the gym was broken. I said that was fine, I'd just use whatever equipment was still working. He said it was all broken. Even the lock on the gym door was broken. It wouldn't open. Annoyed, I started doing workout videos on a yoga mat in the living room. Larry, for some reason, had been working from home lately, and was planted firmly on the living room sofa. He stared intently at his laptop, then asked out of the blue, why the sudden interest in exercise? It was the perfect opening. I looked away. I'm not thin enough. The fitness instructor on the TV bent down, touching her toes in a stretch. I copied her. Larry's throat bobbed. His voice was a little rough. You're thin enough. I panted, I want to get toned. Defined abs are beautiful. Larry shot back instantly, who said that? I paused. For some reason, I hesitated. Was this the moment I should just tear down the whole facade? This was what I wanted, what I'd been working for. But I instinctively found myself wanting to hide it, like a real cheater. I tried to reason with myself. It was probably because the atmosphere at that moment was too good, too unlike us. Larry and I were always rushed, always distant. He was busy with work, and I was busy enduring his work. We had never been like this, sitting together, doing our own things, but able to chat every now and then, like a real married couple. As I was wrestling with my own confusion, Larry gave up his questioning with a quiet, quick, forget it. It's nothing. He just let the chance to uncover the truth slip away. In that instant, I had a strange feeling. It was like we had an unspoken agreement, both carefully protecting the fragile, paper-thin red string of fate tying us together. But a few minutes later, when I went to my room to change, I saw a new message from Larry on my phone. Larry, who had been sitting so calmly on the sofa, had, in the moment I'd turned my back, furiously typed a message to the anonymous texter. You bastard. I'm going to kill you. The TV was broken too. All the other channels worked, but it wouldn't play fitness videos anymore. The housekeeper informed me, looking pained. The whole house had to be vacuumed at 8 o'clock every morning, so I couldn't work out in the living room anymore. I took a deep breath. And I started baking. The housekeeper asked what I was doing, and I smiled. It makes me happy to see someone else eat something I made with my own hands. Larry stood at the top of the stairs, his face grim, his head slowly following my movements between the kitchen island and the oven. I ate the burnt cookies myself. I gave 2 of the good ones to the curious housekeeper. The rest I packed into a little paper bag and tied with a ribbon. Baking for someone. That was enough proof I had a lover, right? And that I was serious about him. I went to my room to get dressed. Larry, I have a group meeting. I have to go out for a bit. Larry was leaning against the island, staring blankly at the now empty baking sheet. He looked up at me. Was this it? Was he going to explode? Announce the divorce? My heart was in my throat. But he just raised an eyebrow, a cruel, wicked smirk playing on his lips. All right. Go ahead. Then he walked away. I went over to the counter and froze. The bag of cookies I'd left on the table was gone. Even the burnt ones I hadn't finished eating were gone. Larry. I was going to share those with my advisor and my classmates. He threw them all away. I was so angry I felt weak. I furiously texted him from my burner phone. Your wife said you've been in a terrible mood at home lately. She's scared. She misses me every night. She even cried. Larry, why won't you get a divorce? What's the point of dragging this out? Is winning so important to you? She doesn't owe you anything. Your marriage was nothing but a business transaction. You got what you wanted. Why won't you let her go? Larry, she cried. I stared at the message, completely dumbfounded. Was that the point? The point was the divorce. A second message from Larry came through. You live in the North Hills District too? A cold sweat broke out on my skin. How did he know that? But before I could deny it, Larry texted again. I'm close to finding you, you disgusting, gutter trash mutt. I panicked and shut the phone off. A cold sweat slicked my skin. My time was running out. I had to make a big move. No more of these little tests. My hands trembled as I clutched the divorce papers I drafted. I put them in my purse. Then I put on my shortest skirt and high heels, did my makeup, spritzed on some perfume, and opened the door. I'm going out. Larry watched me in silence. It felt like the first time in days that we had looked at each other so long and so carefully. The light from the living room cast a shadow across his cheekbones. He looked thinner, his eyes laced with red. He looked like he was burning his own life force like a candle at both ends, sharp and awake, but pale and strangely beautiful. How long had he been sitting in the living room? Where are you going? He asked coolly. A friend's house. Which friend? Larry's gaze was fixed on my too short hemline, his expression darkening. You don't know them. He smiled, a silent, humorless smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He shook his head. Tell me. Then I'll know them. Larry, our marriage is just a transaction. When we got married, you agreed we wouldn't interfere in each other's private lives. He slowly stood up. At 6'2", with broad shoulders and a narrow waist, he was built to wear clothes. I only then realized he wasn't in a suit. He was wearing a form-fitting black sweater. The fabric clung to him, stretched taut across his chest. He looked down at me, slowly taking off his blue light-blocking glasses and tossing them onto the sofa. Go on, Catherine. Let me count how many more piercing words you have left for me. I backed away, trembling, but stubbornly forced myself to speak. And another thing. I don't owe you anything. My sister is back. If she knew how you treat me, she'd like you even less. That seemed to work. Larry's brow furrowed, just for a second. What? I swallowed. I'm leaving. And not only am I leaving, I'm divorcing you. I didn't care anymore. I threw the divorce papers on the floor and ran for the door. I'd finally said it. All my nerve-wracking days were over. I felt a wave of relief and exhilaration, like I'd finally gotten to the front of a long line to ride the roller coaster I'd been dying to get on. After the relief came a confused mix of tension and fear. I bolted for the door, grabbing the handle with both hands like my life depended on it. I got it halfway open. Slam. Larry punched the door shut. He pinned my hands against it. You dare? Larry stared at me, his expression not angry, but almost calm. But his eyes were impossibly deep, and his breathing was ragged and out of control. I gritted my teeth. Larry. I have someone else. Get a grip. He clenched his jaw so hard I could see the veins throbbing in his temples. He looked like he was about to pass out from rage. His knees locked around my legs, his body pressed against the door. He was so furious he could barely stand, but his hands still held mine, keeping me from the door. He was coiled around me like a snake. That cold, cruel mouth couldn't spit out any curses, but it couldn't form any sweet words of pleading either. All he could do was grit his teeth and repeat, you dare? My back, pressed against his chest, was burning. The pain shot through my bones and blood like an electric current. My mind went white. I couldn't even control my breathing, let alone think straight. The light was so bright. It was impossible not to notice his cold, beautiful face, our bodies pressed so tightly together they might as well have been fused. I was shaking. I gritted my teeth to speak. I'd meant to say something harsh, to force his hand. But my voice betrayed me, surrendering before I could, coming out soft and choked. You don't even love me. I was panting, my voice low. Larry, please, let's get a divorce. You don't love me. Someone else will. Larry's breathing stopped for a second. He went rigid, his jaw tight, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't get the words out. His trembling body slowly regained its strength. He steadied himself with a hand on the door and stood up straight. I reached for the handle again, but he swept me up into his arms. What are you doing? I struggled frantically. Larry's face was a mask as he let me kick and fight, kissing me hard as he walked, deliberately stepping on the divorce papers. Divorce? Over my dead body. Tears of anger streamed down my face. Why are you doing this to me? How can you be so unreasonable? Larry carried me to the bed. He said, because we're married. For the rest of our lives, we're stuck with each other. I tried to provoke him. I love him. I slept with him. The last veil was torn away, but it wasn't the earth-shattering explosion I expected. He calmly began to take off his clothes. My biting had left his lips red and swollen, which only made his pale face look more stark and beautiful. His body was a masterpiece of perfectly sculpted muscle, even more impressive than the picture I'd sent him. He looked down at me. So what? I was stunned. What? Larry said, his face blank, you're still young. It's normal to be curious about sex and want to play around. I couldn't believe it. He looked down at me as he took off the last of his clothes. My eyes were involuntarily drawn to a certain area. I suddenly understood why Larry had only laughed at the 2 provocative pictures I'd sent. He had every right to be contemptuous. Larry gently took my wrists. He lowered his head, and I smelled the scent of his pheromones. Without all the layers of his formal, restrictive suits. Without his endless work and his cold words. For the first time, I realized the obvious. Larry was a man. A man brimming with possessive energy. You. My tongue felt thick. I couldn't form a coherent rebuttal. In that moment, all my senses were focused on the man in front of me. He looked at me coolly. Catherine, you were just hungry. But running away from home for junk food? That's what a child does. He touched my forehead, gently but firmly tilting my head back. Another long kiss. I could barely breathe. I was starting to forget what my original goal even was. Larry's hand was on my neck, the pressure light, just enough to be slightly suffocating. He looked down at me, examining me, his voice a low whisper. But trying to leave me for trash? That won't do. When you do something wrong, you still have to be punished. I trembled, my voice shaking, as if I'd been hypnotized by an incubus. All I could do was follow his lead. How? How will I be punished? He traced the path between the 3 moles again. I whimpered, begging him to stop. Larry just watched me silently. When my second plea went unanswered and tears started to well in my eyes, he sighed, as if forgiving all my sins, and kissed me, moving deeper. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. The doorbell was ringing. Larry pretended not to hear, trying to continue. A moment later, there was a knock on the bedroom door. Catherine, it's me, your sister. Larry, are you in there too? My sister's voice was full of concerned urgency. Larry's hand clenched the bedsheet. He took a deep, heavy breath, his face a mask of fury. Was he this worked up because his first love was here? I laughed silently, bitterly. I didn't know why the heart I thought had died 3 years ago was now aching with self-inflicted pain. Maybe it was because Larry's possessiveness these past few days had given me some baseless hope. Catherine? My sister knocked again, harder this time. When no one answered, she started to turn the handle. A jolt of panic shot through me, the lock on my bedroom door had been broken for ages. Don't open it. Wait in the living room. We'll be right out, Larry said, pulling the covers over me. Okay. I was dressed and sitting next to my sister, Alice. I felt a strange sense of guilt. Larry sat alone on the side sofa, his fingers drumming impatiently on the armrest. Every few seconds, he took a deep breath to calm himself. Alice, what are you doing back? My sister cleared her throat, as if the words were hard to say. She hesitated, then began, the truth is, I wasn't celebrating a third wedding anniversary. I was traveling alone to clear my head. Huh? I was confused. Alice stammered, unable to continue. Alice, please, just say what you need to say, Larry said, clenching his fists. My sister looked conflicted. Catherine, the truth is, I'm divorced. I looked at her, and in that instant, I understood why she was here. Alice placed the dirty, trampled divorce papers on the table. I was hesitant, but when I saw these, I knew I had to say something. She looked at Larry. Larry, when I ran off, I wronged you. I can marry you now to make it up to you. Please, just let my sister go. My heart skipped a beat. This was supposed to be a good thing. Larry, who had refused to divorce me, would surely give up a substitute now that the real thing was here. But why did I feel so? I looked at them. Larry and Alice were staring at each other in silence. I should be happy, right? I lowered my head, hiding my expression. After a long silence, Larry spoke. What? Alice said, please, divorce my sister. Larry, that won't be necessary. I looked up, unable to believe what I was hearing. His face was blank. Marrying both sisters, one after the other? I'd be a laughingstock. Alice replied, I have foreign citizenship now, and I still use my married name. So don't worry, as long as I stay out of the picture, no one will connect me and my sister. Alice gently pushed the divorce papers toward him. Larry, please sign them. I'll repay the debt I owe you. Stop torturing my sister. Torturing? He laughed, a bitter, angry sound. He leaned forward, all the recent stress seemingly pushing him into a state of crazed, reckless abandon. He glared at Alice. How have I tortured her? Why don't you ask your dear sister who's been torturing whom? He clenched his jaw, the muscle ticking. He couldn't understand it. Why? Why is everyone trying to make us divorce? Yes, I forced her to marry me. It was my sin to bear, and I'd accept however she treated me because of it. But you, who the hell do you think you are? He clamped his mouth shut, as if the last shred of reason was forcing him to hold back more cutting words, out of respect for her being my sister. Alice was stunned. I was stunned too. Larry suddenly seemed to realize he'd said too much. His eyes flickered with a moment of panic before he quickly masked it. But what did he mean? He forced me to marry him. 3 years ago, 2 families had arranged a marriage. My father, impressed with the rising star Larry, was willing to overlook his humble background and marry my sister off to him. But then, my sister met a blonde, blue-eyed violinist from another country and eloped. I was still in school, barely 20, the legal age to marry, and was forced to take her place. What did he mean, forced? Alice murmured, so Ian. You arranged for him to be there. No wonder I kept running into him everywhere. I thought it was fate. Larry shot to his feet, his expression tight. Enough. Don't say any more. Alice stood up too, her eyes flashing with fire. So, you never liked me at all. You deliberately picked my ideal type to get close to me. I don't owe you anything. They don't owe you anything. Shut up. Larry's voice trembled, a rare display of weakness that did nothing to silence Alice's cold, merciless tone. And my sister owes you even less. Larry's chest heaved. He looked as if he'd been punched, as weak and vulnerable as a snail without its shell, baking in the sun, pale and almost suffocating. That's right. My sister owes you nothing. The business contracts from the marriage alliance have been fulfilled. She wants to leave. What right do you have to force her to stay? Alice accused him, again and again. She had actually managed to silence the man who usually dominated the business world. Larry was shaking, his fists clenched. She's not allowed. The corners of his eyes were red. He glared at Alice, not daring to look at me even once. I just won't allow it. He had just called me a child, but now, he was acting more childish and stubborn than anyone. My sister stood in front of me like an angry mother cow, ready to charge him. Do you really think your money makes the world revolve around you? My sister is a living, breathing person, not a tool for you to control. Larry, you can play your mind games and your dirty tricks at your company. What right do you have to bully a college student? His mouth hung open, pale. I almost wanted to say, he didn't bully me. He just never looked at me, never touched me, never loved me, and that made me miserable. Alice was getting more and more furious. Look at the life she's living. Her bedroom door has been broken for ages, and a man of your means can't be bothered to fix it. You stepped on the divorce papers she wrote. Have you ever treated her like your wife? Have you ever been good to her? Poor Catherine had to ask me to buy her a phone card. In an instant, a cold sweat broke out on my back. The hair on my arms stood on end. My mind was filled with just two words. I'm screwed. Larry's fragile expression froze instantly. His pupils contracted. He looked up. What did you say? I grabbed Alice's arm in terror. No, 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 no. Please, for the love of God, stop talking, sis. Alice looked at me, confused, then glared at me like I was a spineless child. What? Is Larry going to pretend to care now? My little sister. Everyone said she was marrying into a life of luxury. But when I was in Barcelona and asked what she wanted, all she asked for was a phone card. It was so pitiful, like she was afraid to ask for anything more. That's not it. I was trembling all over, unable to look at Larry's face. The silence in the room stretched on, becoming torturous. Alice finally realized something was wrong. What is it? What's wrong with a phone card? Larry actually laughed, a short, sharp sound. It's nothing. His voice dropped lower. I felt a searing gaze lock onto me, so intense it felt like it was piercing my skin, a prickly, itching sensation. He said softly, "It's all my fault." I'm sorry, Alice. Suddenly, all the anger was gone. He was so polite he was even calling her Alice now, and bowing his head in apology. Don't you put on that act. It's so fake. Alice was thrown off by his change in demeanor. Larry, yes, it's all my fault. But, Alice, my wife and I still have some things to talk about. Could you give us some space? Half coaxing, half commanding, he ushered Alice out. The moment the door closed, I felt like my death was imminent. The click of the lock was like a starting pistol. I didn't think, I just bolted for the second floor, aiming to hide in his room. I swear, at first, I was only thinking his room had a lock. I didn't stop to think it also had a bed. But Larry was faster. Before I could close the door, he had his hand on it, pushing it open. He looked down at me. He closed the door, locked it, and pulled off his sweater with one hand. Step by step, he backed me toward the bed. Tears welled in my eyes. I was wrong. Larry, too late. I begged, I don't want a divorce anymore. After that whole scene, anyone would have figured out he didn't see me as a substitute. He might even like me a little. I thought. Maybe I could observe a little longer before deciding on the divorce. Larry nodded. Don't even think about it. He pushed me onto the bed, his eyes locked on mine, and kissed my neck with the vengeance of a wounded animal. Hickeys, huh? Calling me bro? Telling me to give my wife to you, huh? You've got some nerve, bro. He kissed me, and the jealousy he had suppressed for so long finally exploded, so intense it turned into a kind of wounded sorrow. But he was always so stoic, so any time emotions broke through, his first instinct was to suppress them. He kissed me for a long time, as if drawing strength from me. Only then did I hear him say softly, "I do love you." I was just afraid that if I said it, you'd tell me you didn't love me back. Larry held me tight. After a long hesitation, I carefully reached out and hugged him back. The moment I did, a shiver of pure excitement ran down his spine. After a long moment, he asked in a small voice, "Catherine, could you say that, honey, hold me thing again?" I couldn't take it anymore. "Get off me." Of course, Larry didn't get off. He got closer and closer, impossibly close. This time, there was no doorbell to save me. I looked at the places where I had faked the hickeys, and he was covering them with real ones, in the exact same spots. Only then did I realize that this whole time, he'd been burning with jealousy, staring at that photo over and over until it was burned into his brain. The curtains fluttered in the breeze. The sun set, and rose again. In the morning light, I groggily opened my eyes. There, hidden in a corner of his desk, was the bag of cookies I thought I'd lost.